Alright, let's see just how many people I piss off with this title.
You want forgiveness? Get religion.
Spider-Man is single-handedly one of the most beloved fictional characters in history, to the point where a discount version of him showing up in Invincible was one of the most talked about moments in a show where Spider-Man doesn't even exist in. Peter Parker is rivaled only by Batman and Superman when it comes to superhero popularity. But is there possibly a new challenger for that spot in Mark Grayson, aka Sorry, I just wanted to do that. What makes Spider-Man so special to so many people is his humanity. Struggles with relationships, struggle with money problems, and struggles with grief are some of the reasons that make Spider-Man so special to audiences all over the world. And some of that is what makes him so near and dear to me. These reasons are what make him my favorite superhero. So what's the deal with this title? Did Invincible introduce me to someone that took that #1 spot away from the wall crawler? No, it didn't. I do love Mark, but every aspect of Peter's character, at least when done well, makes him uncontested. In my opinion, I do think Spider-Man is better, but I do think there is one category that Mark Grayson has over Peter and many other characters as well. See, Spider-Man is known by many as the relatable superhero. Everything a normal human goes through, he has to trudge against just like the rest of us. But there is one aspect of Peter that some people can just never really relate to. Keyword being some, and that one aspect is the relatability of his origin, the reason he became Spider-Man. Spider-Man as a character is conceptually almost always defined by tragedy. Whether it be Peter losing Uncle Ben, Miles losing Uncle Aaron, and Gwen losing her own Peter Parker, Spider-Man is always losing people, and this tragedy is what changes the trajectory of their lives forever. It was the most horrifying moment of his life because it was, at least in his eyes, his fault. Once he was given the opportunity for great power, Peter uses it to satisfy his greed, his anger, his spite. After years of being bullied, he now finally has the means, the strength to fight back. But in a moment of bitter animosity, his actions lead him to being unable to prevent the tragedy that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Through this experience, Peter learns and grows into a better man. There may have been a few bumps in the road in that process, but change doesn't come easy. That comes with the package of being human. Eventually though, Peter grows from a vengeful kid into Spider-Man. This is still one of the best origin stories to date, and it's no wonder the Spider-Verse writers decided that every Spider-Man ever should canonically have to go through very similar events because the writing is just that good. However, as much of a good story this is to witness, it's just not all that relatable. At least not to me, and probably some other people out there too. My life didn't exactly have some massive turning point that changed the course of my life. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but my life just wasn't really defined by tragedy. Spider-Man's origin is, at least to me, something I can definitely admire and take and learn from, but this might be the one aspect of Spider-Man that I can't really find as necessarily relatable. The thing is though, there are people out there that do find this aspect of Spider-Man relatable to them and their lives. In which case, I'm glad that they have a character they can connect to on that end. People can also make the argument that the death of a loved one doesn't have to be taken literally to relate to Spider-Man's origin, and you can just relate Uncle Ben's death to anything that could have taken place in your life that set off a change in you. I can definitely understand that argument, but even so, I didn't really have anything happen to me when I was younger that ended up changing my entire worldview to a drastic enough change like Peter did. I just can't directly relate to Spider-Man's turning point, but it's in this that I think Invincible may have something better for me. This is the one thing that I think Invincible does better than Spider-Man. The fact that his life wasn't completely altered by a single event. Okay, yeah, let me rephrase. His choice to be a hero was never defined by tragedy. Mark goes through some insane shit that most people would probably never mentally recover from. But all that doesn't happen until after he becomes a superhero. And it's in this that I think Mark is actually more relatable than Peter. At least for me. Before his powers kicked in, Mark was genuinely just a normal kid. Nothing major really happens in his life. He was raised in a good home by parents who loved him, even though the legitimacy of that love comes into question later.
You wanna die?
He was loved unconditionally as a kid, and Mark already made the choice to be a hero long before he even knew that he was going to get any powers. Not because of a disaster, not because he was driven by guilt, not because he felt that it was his duty, he just wanted to be a hero because he looked up to heroes. Mark just loves comic books, and even though he struggles with knowing if it's even cool to like superheroes anymore, he just can't help himself. He's a nerd that loves all the cheesy hero shit, and most importantly of all, his dad was a superhero. The person he probably looked up to the most in the entire world was doing what the characters in his comic books were doing. He was out there saving lives, helping people, making the world a better place. Making the world a better place. Mark wanted to be a superhero from the start because he was a nerd and just genuinely wanted to go out there to help people. A simple ass reason like this is something I can definitely relate to. Trying to jump in the air hoping to fly is something I could see myself doing. Who am I kidding? This is something I've done. However, some people may see Mark's desire to be a hero to not be as justified as Peter's. While I agree that Peter's reason is definitely more of a satisfying reason, I don't see anything wrong with Mark's view of things. Just because he didn't have to go through anything crazy to want to help people doesn't mean that he shouldn't. And he's definitely just as genuine as any other superhero. One of my favorite moments in Invincible comes in season 1, episode 2. Mark just became a superhero and finally gets to go out there to save the world. But the strongest superhero team in the globe and his dad are for some reason out of commission. So when an alien invasion happens, it's all up to him. He thinks this is just going to be a cool experience for him to show up, beat some heads, and fly off into the sunset, but it turns out to be much scarier than that. Despite all his strength, he just can't save these people. Everyone around him is getting hurt because he can't figure out what to do. So he has to get help from other superheroes that are his age but clearly much more experienced than him. The aliens leave and the Earth survives by sheer luck. But the best moment in this episode was when Mark just carries this woman that he tried to save to the secret government hospital, screaming for help. He's in complete fear for this person that he doesn't even know just because he does. Mark has always had the heart of a caring and loving person, and we just can't help but absolutely adore him for that. Later on, as the woman gets treated, Mark visits her because he just cares. Nothing made him have this kind of empathy, he just does. He was just raised this way, and that's what makes Mark such a damn good person.
Don't be scared, okay?
You shouldn't really take whatever I'm saying to heart though, because at the end of the day, these are my thoughts. If you personally relate to Spider-Man's reason for change as opposed to Mark's, then that's good on you. Who am I to say what's better and what's not? I just know that when it comes to what led these characters to do good, Mark is a little more relatable to me than Peter is. Look, I'm not saying Peter wasn't a good person before Uncle Ben's death. In most depictions of the story, Peter was also raised by a good father and mother, his aunt and uncle. It's just that in his origin, things go off a little darker than what Mark went through. Overall, I still like Spider-Man more as a character, and he still is my favorite superhero of all time. But it's kind of comforting to know that there's always room to appreciate other characters, right? So while Spider-Man is my personal best, Mark is still just outright. Yeah, I know that wasn't creative, but I didn't know how to end this video, okay? Leave me alone.